Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Robyn MacKillop with Get That GED, and today we're going to be working on some life science questions. And again, there's no way for you to study enough science to know everything you need to know. So the thing to do strategy-wise is to get comfortable with the style of questions, because you're going to have questions, especially on science, on stuff you may have never heard of. You know, words are completely foreign, the concept is foreign. So knowing how to get through the style of question and relate it back to whatever the reading is, that will help immensely. And it hopefully gives some of you some relief that you do not have to know everything there is to know. It's impossible. You could never know everything they might ask you about. So, all right, let me switch cameras and then we'll get moving on these. Ooh, that's terrible. That's terrible. Oh, you know what? I'll bet you I have the blur on. Yep, there we go. When I have people meetings, sometimes I blur the background so they can't see my messy office. Because I have yet to clean that up. That's another thing I have to do when they're all done. All right. Take that down just a little bit. There we go. That's a little better. I'll clear it again. Okay, so we're looking at a cell. And this is a good example of something that you could study, and maybe not have everything you needed for a question that popped up. So just being comfortable with the concept of cells and that sort of thing, you'll be able to connect the answers to the reading or to the images. So this one is, what structure of the bacterium makes protein? And that's your key. So there's a tiny little paragraph. Don't bother reading it. Go to the image and you're going to look for protein. Right there. Structure that makes protein is a ribosome. Your answer is going to be ribosome. Then we get into, I've got to take this up so you can see better. I will say it is not a bad idea to know the phases of cell division in a basic sense, so that if they do ask you a question, like they're going to right here, based on the illustration, you can go right to it. This will never change. It's prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, all different parts of cell division, and they don't change. So it's a good idea just to be reasonably comfortable with this, because it'll make answering the question that much faster. So up here, they're asking us, during what phase of mitosis does the parent cell begin to separate into two cells? Well, that's not bad. We can just look at the images, can't we? Where does it begin to separate into two cells?
Anaphase?
Yes. Right there. That is moving into two cells, isn't it? Nice. I like the images. I like image and map problems because they can't really mess them up for you. If they make you read, they can do all sorts of nonsense. But when you've got images, they really can't fake it. If a parent cell has 4 chromosomes, how many chromosomes will each daughter cell have? Now, this is interesting. So we'll come over here and look. We've got sister parts separate, become independent chromosomes, and move to opposite ends of the cell. Does that help? Yeah, here are your two sister cells. How many little things in there do they have? Can you see that?
3 each. Well, so would it be 6 or 3?
It would be, don't forget that little guy right there. So 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
So it will be B4. Yes, cells are interesting, and this works for animal cells, plant cells, humans or animals. So it's pretty interesting. Other things are different though about plant cells and animal cells. You don't need to study the differences because they'll give you something like this. This is a animal cell structure. They'll give you the information you need. So you don't have to do a lot of comparing and contrasting and trying to memorize, okay, the animal cell has this, this, and this, the plant cell has that, that, and that. Let them give you the stuff. It's not a bad idea, of course, to have read it and be slightly familiar with it, but you don't need to memorize. All right, in this case, we've got the paragraph, we've got the image. Let's see what the question wants us to do. In the illustration, what are the unlabeled organelles shown near the Golgi complex? I don't even know if that's the right pronunciation. It might be Golgi. Golgi. So here is the Golgi complex, and they want to know what's near it. And that's going to be, let's see, we're going to have to read most likely. Animal cells. Mitochondria make energy for life functions. Lysosomes digest food, and the Golgi complex packages proteins. So looking at these answers based on what we just read, which one do you think? Let me go back so you can see that.
Is it a D?
Yeah, mitochondria and lysosomes. And that's all you've got really to contextualize this photo or this image, is the fact that they put those two right before they talked about the Golgi, whatever that word is, complex. Because the image doesn't tell you for that particular answer, does it?
Yeah, and because there is only one nucleus.
Right.
So
absolutely.
we have to how do you say discard that?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. Yeah, we did that one. Okay, let's look at, oh wait, no, I didn't do that one. Actually, I'll let you guys do this one because it's a pretty big reading. That's on page 4. All right, nervous system. And we've got paragraph, we've got the image. We're going to see what they want us to do before we read anything. So what detail from the illustration right there, we don't have to look at the reading. We only need to look at the picture. Supports the main idea that neurons carry signals to allow a person to move, sense things, think, and learn. So if we look up here, carry signals to allow people to do things, basically. So the message comes in, goes through the axon, and the message comes out. So what is going to allow us to get some sort of stimulus and then make the action?
A?
Yeah, it's that axon right there. In comes the information, the axon gets charged, and we're able to do whatever it is we need to do. Perfect. All right, what bones do? Which sentence would best fit in the passage to state the main idea? This one we may need to read, which is just fine. It's a really short paragraph. Bones operate with muscles to move the body. They also safeguard internal organs such as the heart and lungs. Bones store calcium and other minerals for the body to use. Additionally, the marrow inside bones produces blood cells. So it's all about bones, right? It's the structure of bones. So of these, some bone cells release calcium into the blood. Bones can be compact or spongy. Bones are reshaped throughout a person's life, or the skeletal system has a lot of functions.
Sí.
Yep, main idea, nice and broad, perfect. And then we've got the digestive system. No paragraph, but each one of these obviously has something to read. We're not going to read it yet until we know where to go. What statement expresses the main idea of the illustration? So this is interesting. Will you have to read everything? Maybe not. The title is that the digestive system and digestion. So let's see if we are able to figure that out without reading each little thing. Digestion begins even before a person swallows. It's mostly complete when the food leaves the small intestine. It's a complex process involving several organs, or takes place mostly in the stomach. We're going for a main idea. So
Is it C?
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, sí.
And it's C. We didn't have to read all those little tidbits. We might have to for this one, we'll see. Which detail explains that secretions from organs aid with digestion in the small intestine? So here, we're probably going to have to look at something, at least the small intestine, because that's what they're asking about. So what helps the small intestine do its thing? Partially digested food enters the small intestine. Juices from the pancreas and small intestine and bile from the liver complete digestion in the small intestine. So we know that the pancreas and the liver have something to do with it. So coming down here,
Sí.
yeah. Oh, wait, which one did you say?
Sí.
B.
B, perfect. Yep, you got it. First I heard D and I'm like, oh, wait,
Yeah.
no, then it's like, no, I think we said B. Nice. I kind of like the human biology questions because we get it, you know, because we're human. So even if the terms are odd, we know what digestion is. You know, we put food in our mouth and it does its thing, and you know, so we're familiar with it, even if we don't know all the technicalities of it. All right, this one is a table, foods containing B vitamins. According to the table, which food contains vitamin B12? So you're just going to come up here and find B12. They list the foods: beef liver, clams, fish, eggs, milk, cheese.
B, X.
B.
Perfect. It seems almost too easy, doesn't it? Oops, I already did that one. All right, another really big table, the human body and nutrients. We've got a paragraph we're not going to read yet. We're not even going to read all this stuff in here until we know what they want. Which title best conveys the topic of the table? So we have got the title is the human body and nutrients. Here we've got the things that we need to function: carbohydrates, fat, protein, vitamins. Here are the sources of those things. And then this is what they do. So carbohydrates provide energy to muscles, nerves, and brain. So they want to know what title best conveys the topic of the table. Would it be vitamins and minerals, major nutrient classes, healthful eating, or nutrient uses?
Nutrient uses.
There's one that's actually a little bit better.
Healthful eating. Sí.
So it would be major nutrient classes.
Yes. And what's interesting is they titled it The Human Body and Nutrients. So check those titles, they can help. It would not have helped you to read this. It might have been interesting, but during a test, you're not going for interesting, you're going for time. All right, number 3, based on the table, a lack of what nutrient might most affect the skeletal system? Some of you will be able to answer that just because you have that knowledge, but let's go check. So we're dealing with something that would affect the bones. And we can check right here. Let's see, that's energy, organs, infections, body processes, bones. So if we were lacking in minerals, we might have issues with our bones. It'll be A.
Oh.
And some of you very likely could have answered that without reading at all because of the things that you do in life. You know stuff, right? Based on the table, which action provides a person with nutrients from the greatest number of nutrient classes? So what they're asking here is there a product where we can get a lot of different things from? That means we're going to come down this middle aisle. Bread, cereal, peas, salmon, swordfish, fish meat, soy, beans, fruit, vegetables, nuts, meats, eggs, fruits, vegetables. What keeps popping up?
Vegetables. The D.
Yeah. Yes. So when our mom said, eat your vegetables, and we didn't want to, she knew what she was talking about. But they're not that tasty. Sometimes they are.
Lots of butter.
Yeah, no kidding. And that's good for your bones because it's protein, and it's also good. You have to have fat in your diet. I don't know that any of you are old enough to remember the 80s.
Yeah.
But that was the decade that they were like, no fat, no fat, no fat. And you could buy cookies that were fat-free. You could buy everything fat-free.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with it is your body needs fat to function. And so people were getting sick and they didn't even realize why. And some people were still gaining weight because they would eat double the fat-free cookies. It's like, just because they have no fat in them doesn't mean you can eat more of them.
My kid's uncle's that way. He thinks he can eat a whole package because it's fat-free and it's healthy. Can't do it. No.
It's better to get the full fat product and enjoy it and not eat the entire thing in one sitting. You might as well like what you're eating, right?
I agree. I do. That's my problem.
All right, here we're looking at, again, we've got the big paragraph, we've got the little table. What idea is supported by both the passage and the table? So we're going to check the title. Bacteria, not always the bad guy. And then we're going to figure out, we'll look at the table first, different types of bacteria and what it does. And these are good things. So does that help us? We've got some bacteria that live in the digestive tract of humans is beneficial. Bacteria break down and recycle nutrients. The production of some food relies on the help of bacteria, or many millions of bacteria live inside the human body. All of these are fairly true. Which one is going to cover this and this? And this paragraph basically says what bacteria do.
Is it the B?
Bacteria break down and recycle nutrients. They absolutely do that.
A.
Is there one that might be a little bit better?
A.
Yeah, A is it. Some of that bacteria is really beneficial. You need it. If you've ever gotten a stomach ache and someone said, take an acidophilus, that's this up here, that'll help your stomach ache. Because what it does is it puts the good bacteria in there, and that bacteria eats away at whatever's bugging you. It sounds kind of gross, doesn't it? Something's eating away in my stomach. Mhm. All right, here, this is an injury. So cut in the skin. This is the surface of the skin. Here are the bacteria. And that's what we have to be careful of with wounds. The body sends in this histamine, and then they show us a blood vessel with white blood cells. And then the next picture, the white blood cells are heading up because those are your warriors. White blood cells fix things. Based on the illustration, what is the effect of the body's release of histamine? So I think we may need a first step in fighting infection. The body releases histamine. So that means blood and fluids drained from the area carrying bacteria. Body's own bacteria attack foreign bacteria. The flow of blood and other fluids to the area increases. Blood vessels in the area around the wound narrow.
See,
What is the effect?
she's swollen.
You got it. That's perfect. It is C. Nicely done. This one I'm not going to do because it's a lot of reading. You can do the drop downs. It's quite possible that you'll get drop downs on the science test, and they'll be just like this: A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D. And then we have got Lyme disease. Hopefully nobody has Lyme disease because it's pretty bad and it doesn't go away. You can control it, sort of. All right. According to the graph, in which year were the most confirmed and probable cases of Lyme disease reported? So probable is the green, confirmed is the blue. And you're just looking for the tallest.
2009.
Perfect. I like graphs. They can't mess with them. All right, influenza, the flu. Lots to read. We're going to wait on the reading because we may not need to read. And then we're going to come down here. We've got a map. The blue is regional. The yellow, it's really hard to see the yellow even on this that's in color, is sporadic. Green is widespread, happening a lot. So which category of geographic spread of the flu applied to the most states during the week addressed in the map? So the biggest color?
Widespread.
Green one.
Yeah. And flu spreads quickly. Everybody gets, well, not everybody, but you know, it spreads fast. And that's why. Hepatitis. Acute hepatitis cases, United States, 2000 to 2010. Again, we have a table. Based on the graph, which statement describes the trend in the occurrence of hepatitis A in the US between 2000 and 2010? So the number of cases, whoops, you can't see that, sorry. The number of cases is decreasing over time, isn't it?
Yes.
So, hey, it went down. That's a good thing. Which assumption could be supported by the passage and the trend shown in the graph? We didn't read, we may not need to. The number of viral infections is increasing due to fewer prevention options. We know it's going down, so we know that's not true, right? Hepatitis A virus is becoming weaker and less contagious. That's a possibility. Greater knowledge about control of the spread of hepatitis A has led to fewer infections.
Sí.
That's probably true. Fewer people are going to the doctor when they have symptoms. We
Sí.
don't think that's true. Yeah, it's going to be C. Nicely done. And you did not have to read this. Just this was enough information to lead you to the best answer. And 2 of these were no good. So you only had to choose between A and C. Or B and C, sorry, B and C. And C's the better. So there are some tricks to taking these tests. They're still technical. There are still going to be areas where you have to read. But if you can get away with not reading for some of it, that's just going to save you time. So you can actually spend more time on the more complicated questions. All right. This is kind of hard to see. Hawk, sparrow, grasshopper, grass, ecosystems. Which statement best describes a feeding relationship shown in the diagram? And this is always interesting because they start at the bottom and they're going up with the arrows. But really what they're saying is the grasshoppers eat the grass, the sparrows eat the grasshoppers, the hawk eats the sparrows. So it's, even though the arrows are pointing up, you're technically, this is the top tier animal and it could eat any of the below. This one does not eat hawks, but hawks eat sparrows, but sparrows will eat grasshoppers and grass. All right, so based on the feeding relationship shown in the diagram, hawks actually, they might eat grass, but they would rather a sparrow. So A is not it. Grasshoppers eat sparrows. That's not true.
Sí.
Yep, sparrows eat grasshoppers. And if you can, the arrows always throw me, right? Because you follow the arrows up, 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 up. And really what they're saying is, nope, this one eats that one eats that one eats that one.
Okay.
And then you get into the tertiary and all that, but I don't know if we get into that in this section. We've had it before and we'll have it again. All right, we have got movements of nutrients in an ecosystem. And if you start up here, animals that eat plants, animals that eat animals, living things that break down dead plants and animals, soil, air, water, plants. And it's just cycles through. Based on the diagram, what statement describes a flow of nutrients in a land-based system? So this is going to be, let's see, most animals obtain nutrients by eating other animals. That's not necessarily true, is it? Because a lot of animals are herbivores. They only eat plants. Plants obtain nutrients from soil, air, and water. And that's
Yes.
true.
Sí.
Animals that eat animals are a source of nutrients for animals that eat plants. So that means, let's say a hawk that eats other animals, would that hawk be a source of nutrients for, what's an animal that only eats plants?
Giraffe.
Yeah, so it wouldn't, would it?
No.
So C is out. Right now, B is okay, A is out, C is out. Living things that break down dead plants and animals contribute no nutrients. And that's not true either, is it?
No.
So we land on B. Even if we don't like it, we got rid of the other 3, it has to be B. What would happen to the movement of nutrients shown in the diagram if all the plants in the ecosystem died? That would not be a good thing at all. Nutrients would continue to cycle through the ecosystem, skipping the missing step. Plant-eating animals would start eating other animals. That's probably not going to happen. The nutrient cycle would end. soil, air, and water supplies would decrease and eventually end. So if we took out a chunk of this,
I'm
what would
between
happen?
C and D. C and D.
Yeah, and if we took out, would they say, if all the plants died, it interrupts the cycle, doesn't it?
Yes.
So our answer is going to be C, the nutrient cycle would end. Because for this to work, you have to have all the pieces. You pull one out, this no longer is a cycle. All right, we're looking at movement of energy in an ecosystem. We're going to skip the reading unless we have to go back. We've got this nice pyramid, ferns at the bottom, caterpillars, birds, foxes. Which is one way in which energy flows through the forest ecosystem, represented by the diagram. Ferns to caterpillars, foxes to ferns, birds to ferns, or birds to caterpillars. So this is going, whoops, I missed that. This is going up. Our choices are, can we see the whole thing there? Yeah. So we're looking for energy flowing, which
A.
starts with ferns. Yeah. From the bottom to the next. Foxes to ferns doesn't make sense. Birds to ferns. And then birds to caterpillars, that's going the wrong direction. Hold on, I got to drink some water. My throat's getting really dry. What idea does the shape of an energy pyramid most likely reinforce? Larger animals in an ecosystem eat smaller animals. That's true.
Yes.
Plants use sunlight to obtain energy and form the basis for all food chains. That's true, but it's not part of our pyramid. Organisms at higher levels of a food chain live at higher levels in the environment. Maybe, right? Not all. And then the amount of energy available decreases as energy passes from organism to organism.
A.
So that means, yeah, that means there's a lot more energy here, but it decreases as it goes up. So interesting. Life science loves these scales from small to, or great to small. They love them. And they love animals, which is good because animals are fun. All right, this is a predator-prey relationship. We're not going to read unless we have to. And we might have to, but based on the information, which relationship between organisms most likely can be classified as a predator-prey relationship? So one eats the other. Would it be a bear fish, goat pig, bee flower, barnacle whale?
A.
Yeah, the bear eats the fish.
Yes.
Goats do not eat pigs and vice versa. Doesn't happen. Bees are not eating the flower. They're actually, they're a symbiotic relationship. It's good
Yeah.
for the flower and for the bee. I mean, it's not so great for the fish, right?
Yeah.
It's good for the bear, not so great for the fish.
And the barnacle, isn't that the stuff that sticks to them?
Yeah,
Yeah.
which, and the whale doesn't really care.
Right.
So even though it's good for the barnacle, the whale's like, whatever. So it's not a bad relationship for the whale. Okay, this one I'm going to have you guys do. You will not have to fill in words on any of the tests, except for the writing portion in language arts. So you won't have any fill in that require words. The only fill-ins will be numbers. So this is not something that you would see on the test anymore. They used to do it, but not anymore. Thank goodness, right? Because it could be anything.
It could be like drop and drop. If we
Definitely.
have like, yeah, if we have something like this, it would be a drop off.
Yes. Yeah, it would be a drop-down menu and you would choose A, B, C, or D. But the only write-in will be numbers. And so that happens, it does happen in science. It would be one of the math problems. And it happens in math. It doesn't happen in language arts. And what's the other one? Social studies. Again, it would be like a population problem where you might put in a number, but you're not ever going to have to write in words. All right. So this one is levels of organization in an ecosystem. We've got organism, population, community, ecosystem. Based on the information, which statement is a valid generalization about living things in an ecosystem? There are different kinds of things living in an ecosystem. Well, that's pretty true. The communities in most ecosystems are made up of many different species. That's true. This is a hard picture to see, but they've got rabbit, trees, deer. Populations in an ecosystem are made up of individual organisms. Well, that's probably true too. All organisms in a population are of the same species. So that's probably true. Goes from one bird as an organism to a population of the same bird.
I think
What do you think?
B.
I like B.
Yeah, because difference.
Yep.
This is
You've got lots of things happening in a community. You can even relate that to human communities. We've got lots of different people doing lots of different things. All right, and then this one, again, you're not going to have to fill these in on the test. They're not going to give those to you. So the last question, invasive species. Based on the passage, a valid generalization is that competition from invasive species, we're probably going to have to read. So invasive species that are not native to an ecosystem in which they are living cause ecological and economic harm. Invasive species competes with native species for resources and often do not have any predators in the ecosystem. An invasive species population can thrive to the extent that it makes up a large percentage of the biomass or mass of living organisms in an ecosystem. So based on that, a valid generalization usually leads to decreased carrying capacity for other organisms, typically ensures that only the healthiest species survive. Always, that's a problem right there. That won't be the answer because nothing is always or never. There's always there's a gray area. So we can get rid of C right there. Generally leads to an increase in the carrying capacity for the organism that is outcompeted. Now, we have two that say the opposite. Decreased carrying capacity, increased carrying capacity. That means it's going to be one of these two. This is a really good question to have.
Would it be D?
Well,
A.
an invasive species, yeah, it'll decrease carrying capacity for the native. Think of in Florida, the Everglades are full of big snakes. They are not native to Florida or the Everglades. They are pets that people have had and released because that cute little snake that they bought is now an 8-foot anaconda. And so they dump them out in the Everglades thinking, oh, this will be a perfect environment for the snake. It's not a great environment for the snake, and it's far worse for the ecology of the Everglades. It wasn't set up to deal with those big snakes. And so it's really interesting. And I don't know why it's so popular for people in Florida to have big snakes, but if you can read stories on it, they do snake hunts every year to try to get them because they're non-native species. They are invasive. And of course, humans did it. They didn't just find their way to Florida without help from a human, but it messes up the ecosystem. And that's not a good thing, especially when you're dealing with something like the Everglades, which is a fragile ecosystem. Things very much rely on other things to survive, and snakes just ruin the whole thing. It's like throwing I don't know, it's like throwing a bomb in the middle of a room full of people, like a smoke bomb. It's going to badly affect some of the people. So not great. But the Everglades are the snakes are a really good example.
Mm.
And who wants big snakes?
Not me.
You don't want to be hiking out there and all of a sudden have a big snake say, hey, you look tasty. All right. So let me know if you have any questions or if there's anything specific in science that you'd like to see. One of these days, we're going to be doing velocity and all that. I need to make sure that I explain it well, because you are for sure going to have speed, acceleration, velocity questions. And it can be confusing until it's not. And so if I explain it badly, you're going to be like, what? So I got to make sure I'm comfortable explaining it before I give it to you.
Dr. Robyn, what was the answer to the question 5, to the last
Oh,
question?
Question 5, that was A.
A. Okay.
So yeah, I put it under my camera thinking my camera was still on. So yeah, an invasive species decreases the carrying capacity for the native or for the organisms in the ecosystem. So those snakes in the Everglades mess up that nice cycle. And we know if something disappears out of that cycle, the cycle stops.
Yes.
And so it's not a good thing. We're in Oregon, Tammy and I are in Oregon, and we have non-native plants that have come in. We're a very green state, lots of plants, lots of trees. And people have brought, or something has brought, non-native plants, and they choke out the native plants because they require more sunlight, more nutrients. And it's not a great thing. And that happens everywhere, different things. It could be plants, it could be animals, it could be when timber companies cut down a bunch of trees,
Yes.
mining companies. We think about Virginia and the states that coal mining is very popular or used to be popular. They've leveled mountains in order to get to coal. You can't do that and expect the environment to sustain itself.
No, I agree.
But, yeah. We humans need to stop messing with the environment. But we'll see how that goes, right? All right. Monday, what is Monday? Monday is math, surface area, and volume.
Great. And thank you, Dr. Robyn.
Oh, you're so welcome. All right. I will see you all next week. Let me know if you need anything, and I'll try to get it to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a great week.
Enjoy
Bye.
the rest of your week. See you Monday.